We're going to try something really unique. I don't know how this is going to go, but I brought some of these herbs up here. So you're welcome to come up, and I'm going to ask both Peggy and Jean, to give us a little demonstration about how they would go about processing some of these herbs. As I mentioned before, we have Gansal here, and I just brought up what we had available. This is a 1-year-old root. We don't have any more of the older root. Then I also dug up some trichosanthes, and to tell you the truth, I'm not even sure if this is the trichosanthes root. It might have been some weed that was growing next to it. Identification is an important criteria.
Actually, just as a quick note, do not plant trichosanthes next to Dioscorea. It is very hard to tell the difference. The medicinal part is quite different, and you do not want to just eat trichosanthes, whereas Dioscorea is a superior herb. You would be very sorry.
Trichosanthes is a very heavy-duty bitter.
Equals clearing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Then I also brought some leopard lily and some platycodon and some banlangen, some isatis. And if for no other reason, just to see them in their fresh form, for you doctors of Oriental medicine, if you've never seen these plants in their fresh form, this will be a good opportunity for you to come up and smell these, take a look at them, and before we get started on them.
We're going to go through these herbs one at a time, and Peggy and I will make comments about harvesting and processing. This is isatis. The root is called banlangen, and the green leaf is called da ching ye. 2 different medicines, both pretty heavy-duty cooling herbs. The isatis root banlangen is very important medicinally. With this type of thing, we have a basic choice, and as a general rule of thumb for roots, I'm going to tell you that we want to aspire to the form that is found in the Chinese dispensaries. So what's on the chart here, the form in which it's cut, but the overall general principle that's important is that these are traditionally decocted in formulas. That means boiled in an assemblage of herbs that are then boiled for 45 minutes in water. So the object of your processing is to maximize the surface area that's in contact with the water. Is that clear? Mm-hmm. So when we cut these, that's what we're trying to do, is to maximize that surface area. So in a root like this, we would be, and this is kind of basic cooking skills. You kind of have to do this from a practical standpoint. I have 2 options here, and one is to try to split this thing the lengthwise, but this is a fat enough herb so that one of my preferred methods is just simply to do an oblique cut and to eyeball it. And you can even increase the angle so that you're getting a good broad slice like this that's maybe 1/8 to 1/4 inch thick. Okay, so this is going to then maximize your surface area. It's going to produce kind of a uniform looking product. That then would be dried. Now, it's got all of these side roots on here. I'm personally trying to encourage our practitioners to accept these. There's nothing wrong with this as medicine. And so this is the classic instance of this is ginseng, where we're doing ginseng direct, and we're trying to get practitioners accustomed to the concept of ungraded ginseng, because in fact these side roots have just as much medicine, and ginseng is very expensive. So it's much better for them to buy the wild cultivated product and get the ungraded, kind of messy looking bag than it is to buy a lesser grade of cultivated ginseng that looks really beautifully uniform. So this is an ongoing dialogue with our market, and we have not, we've not gotten a lot of breadth in the scope of what we're saying to the Oriental medicine profession, but when we do engage them in situations like this and explain our rationale, and in the case of our Ginseng Direct project, this was very well received, that they could understand to get something that's wild cultivated, that's essentially a wild product, is far better than having a very uniform looking product. And they could take the dust in the bottom of the bag and tincture it and work with it, and it's perfectly good. There are many different things that you can do with these roots, but the basic rule is you start out with aspiring to the form that is found in the dispensary, to cut it so as to increase the surface area that is exposed to water, and as best you can to try to get a uniform size in the product, simply because it looks better.
And it'll help the drying be even.
Yes. Oh yes, the thickness should be as even as possible for drying purposes. But visually, for marketing purposes, to look at something that's uniform as a product is more appealing to the eye. And that's just a perception thing. So I can't give you sort of a very, very specific procedure for each of these things. I'm giving you general principles, which then you're going to have to adapt. And the sequence in marketing is that you're going to be showing a sample to your buyer, and then your buyer may very well have specifications. And you talk with them. This is for, more of a bulk buyer. We're going to get into direct marketing this afternoon, in which you have to make all the decisions and then make an attractive presentation. But for a bulk buyer, you can enter into the dialogue, and then you can get indications of what is acceptable. So if they say, I want these transverse or oblique slices, or I want it chopped, I want it splintered, I want it sliced.
Cut and sifted is a pretty common one, and in that case, if that's all right with them, you don't need to tell them they're doing this, but you can use a chipper shredder. Make sure you clean it before, between herbs.
So actually this looks like a very, very good isatis. This is so clean, and it's fragrant. What about the condition of the leaf? Okay, you have two choices here. Hack off all the leaves, spread them out and dry them, and clean them later. Or try to strip off the really, really bad old brown leaves. Then chop it off, spread them out, dry them, and then pick it over.
Yeah, I always wash mine as I'm harvesting them. I cut off the crown, then they get thrown in these big bins of water. It does make it so that the leaves are all wet, which is unfortunate. You can get those big industrial salad spinners and whip off the water, and then spread them out, and then make sure you go back in and fluff them up, because the leaves sometimes are flat enough. These ones are a little bit curly, but they get flat enough and they kind of adhere to each other, and then they don't dry properly. So go in and fluff the crop. You need to fluff the crops, whatever they are anyway, and turn them over. Ones that are in contact with each other, they need air movement to dry.
How can you tell when the seed stock is going to go up on the isatis? It's early in the spring of the second year, and how early depends on your zone. In zone 5, it's approximately the beginning of April. So I would harvest isatis root either late in the first season, or very early, like February or March in the second season, and that would depend on how much frost we had in the ground, what the winter was like, You know how the flavor of a parsnip or a carrot improves if it's left over through the winter. My personal tendency would be to try to go as late as possible. But of course, you know, if there's hard frost at the beginning of March, I'm not going to be able to get it out of the ground. So that's, you know, you have to make a judgment call.
In Zone 9, they're already shooting by February and in full bloom in mid-March.
I think that in a Zone 5 situation, you would be using different plants to harvest the leaf crop than the root crop. Yeah.
Or where I am in Zone 9, I harvest them at the same time in the late fall. And I use the same plant. I get the tops and the bottoms.
Are there any exceptions to the rule of harvesting the roots in the second year? That is a biennial. A biennial means a 2-year crop. Perennial means that it stays in the ground for several years. So most of your plants are going to be in there for several years.
And can stay there until you sometimes need them.
So the rule of thumb would be 3 to 5. So let's take Platycodon next. Platycodon, Platycodon jingjia, the really pretty balloon flower. Kind of an ugly root, yes, but
It's beautiful.
the secret to this root is that it has a thin skin like an onion that has to come off.
If you power wash it, it just gets blown right off.
Okay, so you see this? It's beautifully snowy white under that thin skin. Now, what I have done is to dry this for a few hours, and then the skin becomes brittle, like an onion skin. You could even put it in a warm greenhouse. Dry it slightly until the outer skin becomes brittle, and then it'll slip right off. But to demonstrate this one, I'm just going to take this one piece of root. This is a bellflower, the bellflower family. And we have 2 important medicinals that are bellflowers. This is a very mild tasting root. So the Platycodon jingjia and the Cotinopsis, or the Dongshan, those are the bellflower plants, and they're both on our, are they both? No, not the Cotinopsis.
The Cotinopsis, because it doesn't like the hot heat. Higher elevation folks.
In the north.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the point is that they're mild tasting, and the Dongshan is actually used as a salad vegetable in Korea. So that's,
Actually, this one.
this is too?
Yeah.
Platycodon jingjia is used as a salad vegetable.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, sorry.
Jingjia is schizonepiда.
Right, sorry. Jia gum. All right, so let's pretend I got this clean here. Now, what I want to demonstrate with this one is we can do the oblique slices again here. And this is good. But when you get something that's this fat, and some of the roots aren't really, you know, a nice tubular shape. I've seen this actually butterflied in the pharmacy, where it's split open and then spread out. So it looks like a pair of lungs.
Can you show us that?
That would be like this. But this is still too thick, you know, so it's not going to work. It has to be actually the perfect size to do that, so that it's not too thick. If you attempted to dry this, you might get the
Outside, you might get case hardening.
case hardening, as Peggy mentioned yesterday. And that's something that you want to avoid at all costs.
How about if we quartered it?
Well, or another thing you can do too is you can just go along and just go like that. And when you break the skin barrier, it tends to all the roots dry a little bit better if you break that.
So
Quartering it again. Let's say you split it down the middle, each side down
Well, if you're going for kind of a julienne with a carrot, you're still getting it too thick. So my choice here again would be to go back to the oblique cut, because then you're getting the 1/8 to 1/4 inch slice. And when you get into volume, you're going to be doing this with some kind of a machine anyway. But you have to start out doing it by hand in your kitchen, so that you get a feel for what's happening here and how it dries and what you want your optimum size and process to be. And then ultimately you probably will be altering your procedure slightly to suit the needs of your buyer. That will be the process.
You guys should taste these things as you're harvesting.
Yeah,
them.
let's everyone chomp on some of this. It's
It's
interesting.
another way you can recognize that you've got the right herb. Use your sense of taste so that you can definitely make sure that you're not getting out with the wrong herb or whatever. So
The isatis
use
is
it
going to
as a
be really bitter, but
identification
the jiagung is mild. So make sure you have some tastes here. Okay, we're moving on to the Glycyrrhiza urulensis, or gansao, the Chinese licorice.
It is considered food in Asia.
These are fairly young roots here. This is actually about how they look in the High Falls Gardens field, about this size, with a red outer bark and a yellow interior. And in New Mexico or in the Southwest, they're going to grow this fat eventually after a few years. They're going to grow into
fatter, yeah.
definitely cigar size or fatter.
stogie size.
So when they get to the stogie size, then you're going to be able to do the transverse or oblique cuts. And that's going to be like what the practitioners are used to seeing in the pharmacy. But now this stuff is still good, and I've seen this sold in health food stores just as sticks. So you want to go to a length, a certain length, a uniform length. Use a ruler, decide 2-inch, whatever. We'll use this as our standard here.
And if you guys start tasting these things, not only can you use it as a method of ID, but you can start to gain an understanding, because when you're starting to deal with the practitioners, they're going to be talking about the taste of things, and if you're working with it with them, you'll start to gain that knowledge as well.
If you're selling this in the health food store or as a sweetener or something, I think that this is one thing. This might appeal for certain reasons, but I think a more attractive product would be something that's half that size, like this.
So split.
Yeah, split, because then you get the different color, you get the nice yellow.
It
So
facilitates drying,
it does.
but it's also more labor, a fair amount of labor.
Yeah, and Charles mentioned this in the presentation. I'll just cut up a few of these for demonstration purposes here.
And it's acceptable to sell the thin pieces like that?
Well, again,
Don't
you're going
have much
you would have
Okay,
to
who
you would have to talk to your buyer. And if your buyer is a practitioner, you're going to say, well, I don't have very many older plants, so you're not going to be getting the oblique cuts. You would be getting the split sticks. And is that okay? Is that acceptable? Or maybe send them a little sample or whatever you're doing. So how do you feel about that, Peggy?
The taste?
No.
I'm sitting here eating it. No, I think that's fine. I always leave it to the buyer to decide, sure.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay.
Buyer's boss.
The question was, the strategy would be for smaller roots if you took the mother plant and just left it in the ground. I have heard that the way it's grown and harvested in China is that they plant in 4-foot beds, slightly raised beds, and then they harvest only in the aisles, leaving all the mother plants. So they're getting only the side roots that are coming out into the aisles and leaving the mother plants to continually throw out more roots. I haven't verified that, of course, but it is it does illustrate the principle that the things are just going to throw out roots continuously, and that if you have them in a contained situation where you're chopping them off and continually harvesting, then you've set yourself up pretty well.
Yeah, you can get, in our area in Zone 9, you can definitely get side roots bigger than this, and I still think that you need to wait the 4 years for those roots to sweeten up. I've tasted them at 2 years, and they're not nearly as sweet. So you can take them, at 4 years, let them grow back for 4 years, or try and keep them in check, because by 4 years they're going to have run pretty good. They do come up easily 12, 15 feet away from the mother plant. So I don't think that it's a good practice to take them just at 2 years. I still think we need to wait the 4 years so that this embodies what the practitioners are looking for.
This is the Esther Tatara'kiss, or Zwan, and the purplish root is the medicinal. Now, what this plant does is continually throw off daughter plants, and the roots are all tangled together. So we harvest this at High Falls Gardens by cutting these segments, really cutting it at the crown.
I have a pair of pruners there if you want. Inside.
You're a little sad.
It's going to come up in a big clump, and the fibrous roots hold the soil very tightly. So the first thing you have to do is to cut off all the crowns. So I'm right at the crown, and you can see clearly how there is a mother plant with 2 daughter crowns at the side. Now, those really ideally should be separated. And I know this sounds like an awful lot of labor, because right in here there's a lot of soil, and that has to come out. So the way we do it is we just take out huge clumps of this, and we wash it repeatedly to get the coarsest fiber off.
Soaking can help if you...
Yes, soaking.
Growing in sandy soil is preferable.
Then there's really no alternative but to try to cut and separate these plants. You can just break in, Peggy, here if you've...
What I
if
usually
you've
do is
got a
I take a knife and I actually cut off a lot of those feeder roots just to try and get in there, because this is one of those classic herbs. It's very easy to grow, but it's hard to clean, and you end up not ending up with very much plant, crop at the end, and it's a little infuriating. So I end up cutting off some of those feeder roots. Primarily, what they're interested in, I think, is the bulb material on the interior.
So it's not the roots as much as it is.
It's not the rootlets.
It's not the rootlets.
It's the crown.
But
Exactly,
you
it's the
can
crown.
you can see how I'm breaking it apart here. All right, now if you wash it again, all of that impacted material, soil is going to come out of there. Okay, and you'll eventually get it down to where there's no soil in it. It's just a matter of repeated washing. This washed again and dried would be the medicinal portion right there. This would be Zwan.
You can also slice it. I've also sliced it in parallel slices.
You want to try that,
I frequently try
or get another one and
Yeah.
yeah.
just the bulb right under the crown.
That's what I was-
Yeah,
that's what I was
it's kind of a fleshy area right under the crown.
Yeah, in that way, it makes a pretty good presentation to have these slices, because they can see how big it is. There's a lot of question about growers, if we know enough about when to harvest in the United States and how to harvest, and this allays their fear somewhat that it's grown long enough that it shows the same as what they're used to. I frequently will ask them, well, how do you feel about feeder roots? It saves me from having the labor of cutting them off. It adds weight. So I'm just looking, I'm exploring. Of course, you're going to want to cut off any of the tops like that, and you wash it before you're going to cut it. This is really actually pretty easy to grow and to clean. It's an okay seller. But I'm just cutting it similar to what Jean was doing. But people, ours grow pretty small. These would be pretty big ones for us. Charles, how old is your Belum condichinensis?
That one is probably about 4 years old.
Okay, even at 4 years, mine don't quite make it this big. But mine are a little bit orangier. May matter, may not matter, just differences. This may be from our stock anyway, though.
It is.
Yeah. So who knows what...
Either you or Jean.
Okay. Actually, it's really fascinating. When Charles got a bunch of stuff from me and then planted it out, it was fascinating to come see the differences in the growth habits of his as opposed to what was in my garden.
Yeah, it really is amazing.
Oh yeah, the gochitsa, it was like, okay, you guys can grow it very good down here, very well. Anyway, so a lot of it's in the taste, and I encourage people to send out samples so that the practitioners or the potential buyer can actually see them. They're almost always like, okay, instead of it speaks louder than words. You don't have to do a big sales job if you're not into selling, just send out samples. Also, when people taste it, they're usually pretty impressed. Freshness, you've got freshness on your side. How long or how old is an herb when it comes here from China? Don't know. But you know how old your stuff is, and their practitioners will know the quality when they taste it.
I just want to reiterate that with the leaf crops, as close as you can get to the whole leaf is really what's preferred in Oriental medicine. That's a direct contrast to what's going on in Western herbalism, where they want a finely riddled or
A
cut and sifted product.
But it should be kept whole, and if you are going to do a cut and sift, do that right before you send it out.
The more the leaf is broken, the faster the energy is going to dissipate. And so the preference of the Oriental medicine people is that the qi is locked in. And they're judging that by color, aroma, and the intactness of the product.
The flavor.
And with the flavor. And obviously when you decoct a formula, if there's a whole leaf in there, it's going to decoct just fine.